Okay, hear me out for a second. I know exactly what you're thinking. A wife. We've seen this story before. We've watched versions where the wife is perfect, dangerous, replaced, desperate, secretly wealthy, emotionally distant, or even time traveling. The concept itself isn't new, but this wife is different. This wife is tiny, and I don't mean metaphorically small. I mean physically small. Smaller than an apple. Small enough to fit in a dollhouse. Small enough to be carried around like an accessory. And yes, that detail alone is already deeply unsettling. Before we begin, would you please support me? Subscribing is free and very important to me. Please subscribe for better analysis and more videos. That's the core idea behind the new Peacock series, The Miniature Wife, and everything about it makes me uncomfortable in the exact way good satire is supposed to. The show stars Elizabeth Banks as Lindy, the wife who has been shrunk down to a miniature size, and Matthew Macfadyen as her husband Les, who remains very much normal sized. The visual contrast alone tells you that this is supposed to be funny, but the more you think about it, the less funny it feels. And that's where things get interesting. The show isn't suggesting that Lindy was always this small. In fact, Peacock describes The Miniature Wife as a dramatic comedy that explores power imbalances in a marriage after a technological accident turns a relationship problem into a full-blown crisis. That phrasing alone should set off alarms. So what kind of technological mishap could possibly shrink a full-grown adult woman down to something closer to a Lego figure? According to the teaser, the answer is absurd and somehow very on brand. Les is a scientist, and he's experimenting with enlarging corn. Yes, corn. That experiment goes wrong, and instead of agricultural progress, we get a microscopic spouse. The teaser trailer is only 30 seconds long, but it manages to pack in an impressive amount of chaos. We see Lindy panicking about the very real possibility of dying at any moment. She begs to be returned to her normal size. She nearly gets taken out by a robotic vacuum. Meanwhile, Les appears disturbingly calm about the situation, maybe even amused. At one point, he keeps his tiny wife inside a dollhouse. And if that detail didn't already make you uneasy, the way he seems to enjoy the control definitely will. The trailer hints at the so-called power imbalance Peacock mentions. Lindy is physically vulnerable in ways that are impossible to ignore. Les controls her environment, her safety, and quite literally her survival. And yet, the teaser also sprinkles in moments that are meant to feel whimsical. Lindy enjoys a single square of chocolate like it's a feast. She sits inside a coffee mug like it's a lounge chair. If you're unsure whether you're supposed to laugh or feel disturbed, that confusion is probably the point. From the outside, this looks like it should be a broad, ridiculous comedy. Something closer to a slapstick fantasy. You could easily imagine a different version of this show being called something like Honey, I Shrunk My Extremely Attractive Wife and playing everything for cheap laughs. But the people involved suggest something deeper. In a particularly unhinged interview with Variety, Matthew Macfadyen talked about the concept in a way that actually made it sound more unsettling, not less. He described it as ridiculous but immediately compelling, and then added that it's fundamentally about a relationship. He pointed out that the couple is at rock bottom, even when the woman is literally the size of a coin. That sentence alone tells you everything you need to know about the tone this show is aiming for. Elizabeth Banks brings a sharp self-awareness to roles like this, and casting her as Lindy feels very intentional. She has the comedic timing to sell the absurdity, but she also knows how to play emotional frustration without softening it. Lindy isn't just small, she's trapped, and the fact that her husband might be enjoying that dynamic is what gives the premise its edge. Matthew Macfadyen, on the other hand, has built a career playing men who appear polite, intelligent, and reasonable while quietly exerting control. Seeing him as Les, a man whose physical presence suddenly outweighs his partner's in every possible way, feels like casting designed to make viewers squirm. And then there's the rest of the cast. The series also stars Sian Clifford, Zoe Lister-Jones, and Otifag Bennell, who plays a friend of Les that may have feelings for Lindy. That detail alone adds another layer of discomfort. A woman who can't leave, a man who controls her space, and someone else who wants her but can't reach her. If this sounds like a social experiment disguised as a sitcom, that's because it kind of is. Peacock has committed to a full 10-episode season, all of which will drop on April 9, 2026. And yes, I fully expect to watch all 10 episodes, partly because I need to know how far this show is willing to go. Will it actually interrogate the implications of this power dynamic, or will it retreat into safe comedy once things get too dark? The official description frames The Miniature Wife as an exploration of marital imbalance following a technological disaster. That's a very polite way of saying this is a show about control, dependency, and what happens when one partner suddenly holds all the power in a relationship. The creative team behind the series also supports that reading. The show is created by Jennifer Ames and Steve Turner, the duo behind Boardwalk Empire and Goliath. These are not people known for playing things safe. They understand moral grey areas. They understand how to let discomfort linger. That's why I don't think this is going to be as light as the teaser pretends. There's something inherently disturbing about shrinking a woman and trapping her inside a domestic space while calling it a comedy. And the fact that the show seems aware of that discomfort is what makes it compelling rather than tasteless. If you found yourself laughing and then immediately questioning why you laughed, that reaction is exactly what this show wants. And if you're already debating whether Les is clueless, malicious, or something in between, congratulations. You're already engaging with the premise. I'm genuinely curious how Peacock plans to balance the tone here, because if The Miniature Wife commits fully to examining the emotional fallout of this situation, it could be one of the strangest and smartest relationship dramas we've seen in a long time. And if it doesn't, well, it'll still be impossible to look away. Either way, when April 9th rolls around, I'll be watching to see whether that corn ever gets bigger and whether this marriage survives when one person can literally fit in the palm of the other's hand. If you made it this far, you're probably as unsettled as I am. Until next time, keep questioning the comedies that make you nervous. I'll see you in the next breakdown.